right, welcome. We are going to work on in class we are working with writing algebraic expressions. And we didn't get to really evaluate. All we did was pretty much write them. And when we talk about evaluating, that means we're plugging in numbers in for variables and coming up and simplifying down to that final number, what it's gonna represent. So if I look at an expression like this, 2p plus 7, and I plug in a value for that variable, and I just don't plug in whatever I want. I have to see what the variable is actually worth, and it actually says right here that this variable is 2. So wherever I see that variable, I should replace it with 2. So what I've seen is kids putting in 2 there, like this, and then being like, oh yeah, okay, so now I have 22 plus 7, so that's 29. But think about, what are they doing wrong here? You're like, that's not wrong, that's what I did. Okay, well, the issue is that when I look at this problem here, there's 2 mathematical operations going on. There is addition, and then the other one's kind of hard to see, but it exists between the 2 and the variable p. And that operation is multiplication. So instead of 22 plus 7, you're going to have to use order of ops on this because we have more than one operation. And I'm going to have to multiply first and then add and not get 29 but get 11, which is a much different answer than 22 plus 7. Okay? All right, so let's try this one over here on the right. So now we work through this one. And I'm going to erase that part. So now let's look at this. So we have the expression s minus np. So again, first look to see how many operations we have. And in this case, I have subtraction and I have multiplication. And now I'm going to evaluate it. I'm going to come down to one final number. So I need to figure out, what does s stand for, what does n stand for, and what does p stand for. And that's given to me all up here. So I'm going to plug them all in. So s, I'm going to plug in -3. I'm going to bring down that subtraction sign. And the n is 3 and the p is 2. Remembering that this is not 32, but that it's n times p, 3 times 2. So a lot of you like to work from left to right. No. We have rules in math, and they're called order of operations. And in the order of ops, do you remember that saying? PEMDAS. Start with parentheses, well, there are none. Exponents, there are none. Multiplication, division, we do have that. Okay, addition and subtraction always comes last. So I would go here and get 6, and then I'd bring down the subtraction. And now you guys were on a number line, and we need to be thinking back to what we did in class earlier. If we have -3 minus 6, where are we going on the number line? We're going left -3. And then are we turning around and going right? No, because it says subtract, so that means we go left again. So really, what are we doing with these numbers, 3 and 6? Really just adding them together. So 6 plus 3 is 9, but notice we land on the negative side. So we end up with -9. All right, let's take a look at another type. So we've worked through this one and this one. So now let's say I have something like s squared minus ns. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to look for what operations I have going on. I have multiplication again, I have subtraction, and I have an exponent. So when I evaluate this, I'm going to plug in those variables, and in this case, I don't need what p is worth because I don't have that variable in there. And now I'm going to plug in And I am going to make a mistake here, and you see if you can figure it out. So I plugged in my values, and the S value was -3. So I'm going to make sure that that's in parentheses because I want the negative and the 3 being taken to the second power. So now, when I evaluate, inside the parentheses I'd start there, but you guys, those are just numbers. The only reason the parentheses there is to hold the negative there. So I don't need to work with that. So I'm going to go to exponents. There is one. So I'm going to go ahead and evaluate this. I'm going to bring down my subtraction. And then hopefully at this point you're saying, no, Miss Eberly, you made a mistake. If you're like, no, I think you're fine. You're doing just fine on the problem. No, I did make a mistake, and it's right here. Okay, and it's very common for people to say that -3 to the second power is -9. But it's not. Because -3, if I write this out, -3 to the second power means that I need to write a number twice. I need to multiply it twice. So what number is it? The base number, -3. So I write that twice and I multiply those numbers. So if you notice, the signs are the same, so it ends up being a +9. So instead of a -9, this should be a +9, which will change everything. And now I do not do the subtraction. I go to the multiplication. And 3 times -3. Now those are different signs. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that is -9. So 3 times -3 is -9. And now again, I'm working with positives and negatives. So I need to go back to that number line and think, where am I going? So if I go 9, I'm going to the right. And if I subtract, I'm going back, but then there's a negative to say, no, actually keep going. So if I go 9 and I go another 9, I'm really just adding them, and I land in the positive realm. So it ends up being +18. Okay, let's try one more. So let's say I have SN plus P times the quantity of N minus S. All right, so there's a lot happening there, a lot of operations. I have multiplication, I have addition, I have multiplication, and I have subtraction. So let's plug in some numbers. So if you think you can do this, go ahead and try. Pause the video, try it out, and then play it again. But I'm going to plug in the values. S is -3. N is 3, remembering that I'm multiplying. Plus P is 2 times the quantity of N, which is 3, minus S, which is -3. It's order of ops, PEMDAS. I'm going to start inside the parenthesis. 3 minus -3. On the number line, I'm going 3, subtract, I go left, but then there's a negative to keep me going. So I'm really just adding. So this is +6. I'm going to bring down the rest of the problem. I have multiplication happening between these two. And now order of ops, there are no exponents, so I'm going to go to multiplying and dividing. And I have multiplying happening, so I'm going to multiply from left to right. -3 times -3 is -9, because they're different signs, so it's going to be negative. Plus, and bringing down the problem. Now, are we going to add or are we going to multiply? And you guys know addition comes last, so we're going to multiply. 2 times 6, and that's going to be 12. So -9 plus 12, I'm thinking on the number line, where am I going? -9. Plus means I'm turning right. There is not another negative to turn me around. So I am going to keep going this way. It's going to be longer because it's 12. So these overlap, so I'm going to subtract them. and I land in the positive realm. So I get an answer of 3. So thanks for working with me. See you Friday for the test.